Dit programma wordt mede mogelijk gemaakt door het International Film Festival Rotterdam.
Welkom bij de 43e editie van het International Film Festival Rotterdam. Deze week worden in de stad weer honderden films vanuit de hele wereld vertoond. In het komende programma Big Talk praat Hans Maarten van den Brink 5 avonden in het Oude Luxor met een bijzondere gast van het filmfestival. En vanavond is aan de beurt de Britse regisseur David Mackenzie van het gevangenisdrama Start Up.
You fuck me, you and all. Man, sorry, I fucked him up, you know. I'll catch him fucking good, mate.
Who?
That fucking fat black bastard in the fucking canteen, you fucking know who.
You cut him?
Yeah, you fucking stuck him on me, mate.
Really?
Yeah.
Hi and welcome. Does your thingamajig work?
Can you hear me, everyone? No.
No?
Okay. We'll share the microphone. Hello.
Okay. First time in Rotterdam. We will talk about the film, we will give some context, but we will not spoil the story
Okay, good.
as far as we can. Start up. I think, starting with the title, I think that means an upgrade to business class.
Yes.
What does it mean in this film? Where does the title come from?
The title comes from a practice which may or may not happen. It's totally deniable. It's rumoured to happen within the British criminal justice system, where teenagers or people from the ages of 18 to 21 who are in what would be young offenders institutes are put into adult jail prematurely because they're too much trouble for the young offenders system, and that's what the title comes from. It's never officially been practiced. This is a fiction film, so I'm not saying it definitely is happening, but there are very strong rumours that this is something that is happening. And also, the new policy in the UK, they're looking at the idea of integrating young offenders into the adult system anyway. So, a long-winded way of talking about that.
Well, we will not discuss if that's a good idea. It certainly doesn't look like that in your film.
Okay.
But why did you want to make a film about life in prison? Was it something you were aiming to do for a long time, or was there simply a scenario by somebody else that you thought, I'll do it?
Well, I mean, the way I decide to do all films is somehow rather getting an interest in the material. In this particular case, a script came from Jonathan Asser, the first-time writer who works as a therapist within the prison system, it was recommended to us by a novelist that we know, and it was very, very strong, very powerful vision, and I was drawn to the material, as simple as that. I didn't think about doing a prison movie before then, but on seeing the power of the script, and then working with Jonathan to evolve the script and to make all the things that eventually become part of the film, I really engaged with the material. But having engaged with doing a genre film, I've never made a genre film before. Sorry, do you want the microphone?
Yeah. We have
Sorry,
a little bit of a power struggle here now.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. No.
Yeah,
well, okay. Beg your pardon. So.
Well, you mentioned the word genre film. You are a director. You knew, there's a first-time writer, that the prison film is a genre.
Yes.
From The Birdman of Alcatraz to Un Prophète. Mm-hmm. What is attractive about working within a genre? Just to break the limits or obey to them? How does your film relate to maybe the laws and rules of the prison film genre?
As someone who doesn't really respond to genre normally, there was no way of escaping. This was definitely going to be a prison film from the word go, and it was actually kind of liberating for me to be within the confines of an existing genre, but also within the confines of the visual vocabulary of doors and corridors and bars and windows and all of the things that make up the architecture of a prison. And as well as that, the rhythms and routines of prison life. And so in a way, the confinement of the genre and the confinement of the subject work very nicely together. And for me, it was a liberating process as a filmmaker. Nicely as for the process of making films.
In an artistic sense of the word, there is something I think is maybe one of your trademarks in the whole approach to this film. I would say, and please contradict me if it's not true, there's no psychology here, which is surprising for considering the fact that it was written by a therapist.
Yes, not only is it written by a therapist, but it contains quite a few scenes involving therapy.
In a rather caricatural way, I would say.
In a rather caricatural way?
Yeah? Am I doing...
No, I don't think you're doing justice to it. I think you definitely... I think it's it's a very, very real way, and very much a reflection of the reality of the process that Jonathan, the writer, evolved in his very special therapy. So what we're showing on film is very close to a reality, and certainly not a caricature. I'm very offended.
Okay, you're talking to the son of a therapist, so maybe that accounts for my mistake.
But I think you might mean there's no backstory, or in terms of psychology, I think there's quite a lot of psychology, but it's not embedded into the rationale as to how things are happening. We are choosing to live in the here and now of the narrative.
You're, in a sense, locked in the situation without the escape of this was the reason. So I meant that sort of psychology.
Yes.
How did you approach the filming process? Was there a kind of method acting involved? Getting into the character, because we have a whole set of people, a lot of extras, very curious where they came from, because they look really fearsome. And we have two main characters who really, are very believable in their role, in their aggression. So the process.
Well, the process was a great process for me. It was the first time I ever had a chance to make a film shooting sequentially. So we shot the film in story order, which was a fantastically liberating process for all of us, but I think particularly the actors, because they learn their character as the narrative progresses.
You didn't rehearse before?
We did a bit of rehearsing, but
outside the prison?
Yeah, a little bit even in the prison. But the combination of shooting it sequentially in a real prison, so there was no cheating. We weren't sort of geographically faking very much at all. Just meant that we were involved in the world as much as we possibly could be. And all of the actors, they didn't have trailers; they had cells. When they weren't working.
They were sleeping in the cells.
No, they weren't. No, they went back to a hotel, but or apartments. But during the day when they weren't working, they were in their cell. And it just being there, all of us kind of absorbing the power of that architecture, and the history of this prison. It's an extraordinary prison that has a lot of history. Just affected everything, and so that was a really strong part of whatever made anything feel real.
So did it turn the scenario completely around? The involvement of the actors?
I don't know about turning it around. I mean, what's interesting is, for example, Jack O'Connell, the lead, is very much a method actor, and Ben Mendelsohn, who plays the father, is very much a non-method actor, and they both get to the point where they get to in the film, which is a very authentic performance by very different routes. And so part of my job as a director is to allow them both to get to where they need to get to with their different traditions and their different ways of doing it in an environment that is controlled but also free. And somehow or other, being within a jail, that was weirdly liberating. So,
what was that you said? It was weirdly liberating to be in a jail.
Yes, I mean,
yeah.
Just because it's a contained environment, it's a contained, controllable environment, which is it's like a film studio, I suppose, in a way.
Film studio is a jail. That's also an interesting comparison. But there were actually two jails that were involved, yes, or two buildings.
very first or second shot in the movie and the last scene were in another jail, which is just happened to have a better exterior. So we shot there the very last day of filming. So it was not strictly sequential, but very, very close. Yeah.
Okay. The whole approach to the film, was it difficult to finance this sort of genre? I'm not giving too much away when I'm saying, for instance, that it takes, I think, almost 9.5 minutes before we hear the first sort of dialogue voice. Not very suitable for television, conventional wisdom has it.
Well, and then you don't, and then when you do hear it, you don't understand what they're saying anyway.
Yeah, that's what we have the subtitles for, hopefully.
Yeah. It was this is quite hard to finance because Jonathan used a lot of language which is prison slang. It's London prison slang, and it's very particular language. And people are going, they don't understand it, and I was kind of going, well, you will understand it because it's embodied by people. And but it took a hard job to try and persuade people to finance the movie, particularly for that reason. And
for the language or the situation or the style?
The language, in particular. The language, people going, I don't understand it because there's too much slang going on. I decided that it was more important to keep the authenticity of the slang than it was to make it fully understandable. And I would urge you as an audience, you're going to read subtitles anyway, not to feel like you need to understand every word, to be honest. It's not that, that type of text. It's, it's about an emotional response to the interaction of the characters more than particularly word for word what every slang word means. But I think you have subtitles which is the explanation of the slang word is in the subtitles. Anyway.
So that's almost spoiling your movie. Are we on the air again? Well, that's great. Are you too?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Well, it was a sort of interesting game also.
No, now the power goes back to equality.
Where
again.
it belongs,
okay.
Yeah. Hard to finance. How did the financing come about in the end? But because of the language, not because of the situation or the message or whatever.
Particularly because of the language. I mean, I think people thought it was a very strong film, and they could see that there was something very interesting in the dynamics and all those kind of things. But they were worried that it would be too obscure linguistically. It wasn't made expensively. That's how we financed it. We made it pretty cheaply, and Film 4 were involved, and Northern Ireland Screen, Creative Scotland, and some private equity. So it came together.
Okay.
All right.
And Jack O'Connell, how did you find him?
Jack is a bit of a star in the UK
He was
TV.
in Skins.
Yes,
And I happened to talk to Brian Elsley 1 or 2 years ago, who sort of who said, well, he developed Skins. It's a series about younger people teenagers in London, I guess. No, not in London.
I don't know where it's set actually.
Yeah,
I think it's Manchester or something. But I mean, it's sort of abstract.
And it basically he wrote it together with his son. And a group of people. The actors were very influential in giving the themes, etc. Did that play a role for you, this background that Jack O'Connell had?
No, I'm embarrassed to say I've never watched an episode of Skins in my life. But Jack came to me through a normal casting process, and I met him and just thought he was great. And that it was sort of as simple as that. My casting director put me in front of him. And I thought he had the kind of characteristics that we wanted for this film, which is about a boy in a man's world, and someone who can handle himself in that environment. So that and Jax was just perfect. And I hope that when you watch the film, guys, that you will agree that he puts in an amazing performance.
It's an amazing performance. It's also a very disturbing performance. That goes especially for him, a little bit for the father as well. I always have the feeling that as a director, you have to also love your characters more or less. Do you empathize with either the father or the son?
I think
what's your relation to them?
In pretty much every situation when you're directing an actor in a movie, when you're directing, two actors interacting with each other, one of whom might be perceived as good or bad, you're trying to empathize with everyone. You're trying to understand what all of the characters are doing. You're trying to see where the human being is in all that. So there's definitely.
But you do make that difficult for the audience. Don't you think so?
I don't know.
At least
I think
at
you're being
first.
controversial here. I think.
It goes with the job description a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it. When you say I make it difficult for the audience, I don't know. I don't know whether. I mean, the characters are not
Well,
easy.
easy
characters.
would be,
They are trouble.
here's the good guy in a bad environment.
Yes.
But it's, I mean,
No, these
nobody's
characters are
good
grey
here
area
in a moral
characters.
sense of
They're
the
real
word.
human beings. They're not cartoons.
Yeah.
No.
They're as bad as you and me.
Yeah, they're as
Yeah,
bad as
okay.
all of us. Yeah.
Third time I'm being controversial.
Well,
Yeah.
But yes.
No, but
they're probably actually
you're-
rather worse than most of us. Actually, I have to say that. I mean, these people are very serious prisoners who've all committed pretty terrible crimes. Although we deliberately choose not to really go into the detail of what they've done. So
you don't mention it at all, if I'm not mistaken.
well, it is subtly mentioned.
Yeah.
But
It has probably something to do with violence.
yes.
Yeah. Is there some sort of a message about broken Britain or
No, not really about broken Britain. I think there are messages about broken men reaching across to each other and maybe building bridges in unlikely places.
You're not giving the excuse of the social circumstances. It's in them, in their characters,
I think
to be so violent and to be.
I don't know. I mean, that.
It's easy
That's
to say.
one-
Well,
one side of
this is
the-
all because of Thatcher, you know.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say that.
No.
And actually, I don't. I mean, I think that it's not even. Although it suggests that there is some kind of corruption within the prison system, it's not even particularly a criticism of the prison system itself. It's
Or society as a whole.
It's an attempt to lay down some kind of fictional reality and to allow the audience to make their own judgment in some way.
And to sympathize or feel for characters they usually probably wouldn't meet or wouldn't want to meet.
Yeah, I mean,
Because one of the things of the genre or of this setup is that, of course, you lock in the audience as well. Well, the doors are
Yeah,
open
exactly, the
for
doors are
emergencies,
open,
but
you can.
it's not the idea that you can just
leave
walk out.
whatever you
Yeah.
want. No, I mean, for part of the kind of the sort of aesthetic of the film is to keep things relatively contained, and there's not a lot of respite from the life that's going on, and that was a deliberate choice. Also, to keep it very tense as well. I think in some ways it's almost like a horror film. You know that something is going to explode pretty much at any moment, and that tension.
But you never know when and where.
And what.
And
there's virtually no music in the film, so it's not. No one's being led up the garden path in the wrong way, and it's just the real tension of people that are there. And one of the things that Jonathan, who was on set all the time, it was very particular. He went to all the extras and said, "Don't ever look like you're relaxed all the time." And so we wanted to create an environment. The writer. We wanted to keep an environment during the shooting where nobody was relaxed. Even though if they're socialising, they're always.
I asked about the extras who don't look very relaxed either. Well, so where were they from?
Well, they're all local people from Belfast where we filmed.
And they were all able to identify with, I'm an inmate now, and
yeah, I mean, we did a little bit of sort of training for them. We tried to keep it, and we had some prison officers the prison officers in a way were harder to kind of keep in line because they have more particular rhythms. The prisoners sort of do what they're told to some extent, but the officers, it was harder to make sure they felt real. But it was just a.
I think we're going to wrap this up. You
Okay.
gave us some context. I think you made everybody very curious for the.
You made me very nervous, though. I feel like I've done something kind of scary.
My own perversity is such. I take this as a compliment.
Well, I'm sure you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to enjoy the film,
Okay.
and you can have a drink.
Yeah, I might do that. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you very much for coming.
Dank u wel.
De Nachtfilm is van de Servisch-Roemeense regisseur Sinisa Dragin uit 2010 If the Seed Doesn't Die. Het is een film over 2 vaders op de Balkan. De een zoekt naar het lichaam van zijn verongelukte zoon en de ander zoekt naar zijn dochter die in de prostitutie is beland. Nou, dat zijn 2 zware onderwerpen, maar toch valt er genoeg te lachen, want de situaties zijn doorspekt met zwarte humor.
Dit programma werd mede mogelijk gemaakt door het International Film Festival Rotterdam.